Good morning and welcome back to Narrowboat Gentian, which has been moored here at Beeston Marina for the last 4 weeks or so while I've been off doing other things, most notably going canal boating in France, the videos for which I have already published. The time has come for me to move Gentian a little bit closer to its eventual mooring. I've got 7 stages, each one a weekend, so today and tomorrow I'm going from here at Beeston down to Murcia Marina. However, before I set off, this is a very good site, actually. They've got a bar, they've got a restaurant, they've got a chandlery, lots of stuff, and a cafe which I believe serves breakfast, so I think I might set myself up for the day by starting there.
And that I did, with a splendid cup of tea and a full English. Then back to the boat, ready for the off.
But look, what a coincidence. Narrowboat Gentian has been moored next to a Micro Plus 501, very, very similar to my own Twiggy. Although I can't help but noticing this one actually floats and doesn't have any large holes in its transom. Ah, dreams, one day. I also stopped by the chandlery, which is a dangerous thing to do because it is a bright and shiny place with lots of enticing things, but I have bought new mooring chains and also a new fender because weirdly the boat doesn't have one on this end on the port side. So now I'm fully fendered up, fully chained up, ready to moor on the canals. Let's get going.
Getting off the pontoon ought to have been simple, if only it weren't for the stiff breeze which pushed the bow out into the brambles opposite as soon as I untied, and while I was untying the stern. Of course, this also came with a helping of passers-by on the path above, watching on as I said very rude words, not realising children were in the group. Oops. Luckily, Narrowboat Gentian does a good job of manoeuvring, so with a bit of back and forth I was able to set off alongside the pontoons and head back out onto the main body of the River Trent. It's a bit of a tight squeeze here.
Just as I'm exiting, I do want to say a thank you to Chris at Beeston Marina, who, when I moored up here, very kindly gave me a lift in his car all the way back to Nottingham train station, which I needed to then go back up to Newark to collect the car. This was on the last hop. I'd simply said this is what I was planning to do, and did he know of any good bus stops and train times and things like that? And he said, oh, I'll give you a lift to Nottingham, because otherwise I'd have had to walk to Beeston station, then get a train from Beeston to Nottingham, and then change in Nottingham back up to Newark, and he just drove me straight up to Nottingham, which saved me a big chunk of time and effort. So thanks to him, he's been very helpful and friendly. You know, everyone at all the marinas I've been to so far have been very helpful. Newark, lovely people, really can't recommend them highly enough. All good. Anyway, about to head out back onto the Trent for what should hopefully be the final section of River Trent before I get back on the canal.
This felt a bit like slipping onto a motorway, albeit at 2 miles an hour, just waiting for some juggernaut barge to come herring down the river as I try to get on. But no, that Saturday morning at the end of May there was no traffic at all, and I floored the throttle to make good progress. The stretch from Beeston back up to the main canal network is split into 3 chunks of river with 2 tiny canalised sections dividing things up. First, you do this bit up to Cranfleet, where there is a lock and a short canal. Then you go back onto the river to Sawley, where there is another short canal section, before a final river bit that leads to the Trent and Mersey. You'll see all of this in this video. There is a warning, shortly after starting, not to go around the wrong side of Barton Island, though I see there is a mooring on the end of it there, but perhaps that's private. Maybe it's Dick Barton Island, reserved for special agents. For an alarming moment, I thought I saw people's heads bobbing about in the river, until I realised they were ducks. Which reminds me, I'm due a visit to the optician. A speedboat speeded towards me. hence the name. I made it around the island without incident. There are lots of Canada geese here. I wonder if, like their namesakes, they're all terribly polite. A view of Ratcliffe-on-Soar power station, the Soar being another river that joins the Trent over there. This is an interesting looking boat. It appears to be wooden hulled, I think. Even at full tilt, it's surprising and pleasing how little wake my boat leaves. What a blissful spot for a house, away from everybody. I'm always delighted to see another narrowboat on the rivers, and in this case not one but two in quick succession. Both were making good progress, going downstream with the river flow helping to push them along. I'm practically a speedboat here myself. Look, not only a swan on its nest, but it's actually building or reinforcing its nest as it sits, like a little JCB reaching for materials. Just as you come up to Cranfleet, and I was warned about this, there's a random buoy chained in the middle of the river for no apparent reason. And by buoy I mean a marker buoy, not a small male child tethered into the icy depths for our amusement.
What I could do with right now is someone else on board, because I could really do with a cup of tea. And someone else here to make me a cup would be perfect. I would remind you that applications for the post of girlfriend are open. Must be good at making tea, obviously.
Perhaps I actually need a butler. As well as that random buoy, you also have to look out for this, although it is clearly well marked. Just be aware that any boats coming the other way will also be coming onto your side to go past it, as indeed one did right as I got there.
Chris earlier at Beeston Marina had said he thought there were volunteer lockkeepers on at Cranfleet this morning. It isn't normally the case, I don't think. It's normally one you do yourself, but he thought there were volleys on. And that passing boater coming the other way has just confirmed it. And that will make life easier, because there are always lockies on at the Sawley locks. I thought I was going to have to do Cranfleet myself, but no. Lockies on at both. That will make things much easier. Meanwhile, I am being pursued somewhere behind me by another narrowboat, so we'll probably end up going through Cranfleet together, I'd have thought.
The Cranfleet Cut is a very short straight canal section bypassing the weir at Thrumpton and the confluence of the Trent with the aforementioned Soar. Sensing that the boat behind was definitely catching me up, and not wanting to delay them having to wait for me to go through the lock, I gave Gentian plenty of encouragement, hoping to get to the lock simultaneously. They were definitely on a charge and advancing fast. That sign could do with a shave. Cranfleet would be just around this corner. A heron skittered along the bank as it saw me. Aha! There's the lock at Cranfleet. You can just see there are in fact lockkeepers there. With both a crosswind and the current from the weir trying to push me sideways onto the pontoon, this heron didn't fancy his chances and fled. As usual, the lockies encourage you to steady your boat with a line taken up, wrapped around a bollard and returned to you. Being a double-width lock, there was space for both narrowboats alongside each other. But during the ascent, I discovered the downside to sharing a lock when your boat is tiny. The movement of the water can end up squishing you between the lock side and the longer craft. I've rarely seen so many volunteer lockkeepers at a time, but apparently this is not uncommon here. Lock done, there's a slow crawl past many moored boats until you exit back out onto the river again at the end. So tiny, it must be for Pond, James Pond. And surely this should be Boadicea. Something that boaters with cats often do to warn dog owners and other towpath users about their pets is to put this kind of sign out. Of course, some people are selfish hooligans who don't care, but hopefully passers-by will have some thought to an animal roaming the towpath. And look, down the far gunwale, it's a cat! Having no solar, yet, on narrowboat Gentian, this kind of array gives me envy. I think this must be the first proper old-school canal bridge I've been through in Gentian. A momentous moment. At the far end of the cut is a floodgate, which is open except in severe conditions, so you just sail through and back out onto the river again. Being a tad windy here, the windlass takes up its secondary purpose as paperweight. If you want to pause here, there's plenty of mooring. That's twin bridges carrying 4 lines of railway tracks over the Trent. Coming out into the open here, it's unsurprisingly blowy. Not really the weather for ice cream. This cruiser was either aiming for certain death going over the weir, or, more likely, about to turn right up the River Soar towards Leicester. This is quite a big junction. You can do as the cruiser did and go up the Soar, or go the way I just came from, up the Trent, or turn here onto the Erewash Canal, or keep going up the Trent as I was until you get to the Trent and Mersey Canal. The pub moorings are unsurprisingly popular. Definitely on the home stretch now. I can almost smell the canal network. Or is that the sewage plant at Shardlow? There's just the little matter of traversing Sawley locks first, and there's nearly always someone on here to do the locking for you. Beyond the arches of another railway bridge is a service point with water, Elsan and waste bins, but do go through the correct arch to get there. For the locks you head left, and as that other narrowboat had sped ahead and already gone up, I needed to wait for a minute or two until it was my turn. The gates opening was my cue to go in. I had a good chat with the always friendly Lockies here, then was on my way. That's an unfortunate sight to see. There's a long stretch of moorings here run by Derby Boat Club, which could be a great place to keep Twiggy in a decade or so when I've finished restoring it. Amongst all the boats is a somewhat hidden entrance to Sawley Marina, so you have to keep an eye out for boats emerging. But what's that one doing? Why is it turning? Sometimes it's hard to know what another boater's intentions are. Slow and easy is the best option. There's the marina entrance. And here's Sawley Cut's floodlock, which would block this section off from an overflowing river in times of high waters. Being a weekend at the end of May, there were, unsurprisingly, a lot of boats out and about, people just having fun buzzing around. That's where the river goes off around the cut. And less than a mile ahead of me would be the eastern entrance to the Trent and Mersey Canal. This will be my last bit of river for a long time, so I drank in the experience. Huzzah and hooray! Nearly there. Don't go that way, the sign said. That's the River Derwent, not for navigation. Straight ahead for the canal. Or left to stay on the last navigable bit of the River Trent. But this was my goal, and we'll see what canal boating is like for narrowboat Gentian in the next video. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.